Gunfire echoed over the silent plains, cracking through the moonlit darkness like a cruel promise. 13-year-old Lily Mulgrave stumbled, her heart pounding, as her drunken father's slurred shouts faded behind her. She clutched her torn calico dress, breath ragged and fear coiling in her belly. A battered wagon wheel spun uselessly in the dust. Her father Seth had cast her away without mercy. Just another burden he refused to bear. The wind carried distant howls, but Lily could not outrun her fate. Then from the shadows emerged a figure on horseback, skin painted with moonlit patterns, a Cheyenne warrior. And with that single silhouette, everything changed. Lily. Mulgrave's earliest memory involved her mother's gentle hand, stroking her hair and whispering lullabies by a dim lantern flame. In those days, the soft glow of her mother's face was enough to make the bleak frontier nights less frightening. But her mother's death 2 winters ago had shattered that solace. The father she was left with was Seth Mulgrave, tall, lanky, and raw-boned, once known for his roguish charm and promise of forging a better life out on the plains. Now any promise had long since shriveled under the scorching disappointment of repeated failures. He had come to see fortune slip through his fingers like desert sand. Bitterness replaced hope, and a jug replaced his honest labor. When the money dried up after the family's disastrous attempt at farming near Deadwood, Seth took Lily to roam from one rough settlement to another. He chased rumors of gold, silver, or open land. Each rumor led only to more heartbreak and more whiskey. Their newest home was a leaking tent pitched near a rocky ridge a few miles outside a real place known as Fort Laramie, a trading post and military garrison in the Wyoming Territory. Lily often gazed at the fort with a strange longing, imagining the uniformed soldiers and caravans of travelers heading farther west. At least inside those tall wooden palisades, people looked after one another. One balmy evening, Seth's temper caught fire in the flicker of their camp lantern. Drunk again, he raged over a petty grievance, some worthless rumor about farmland. Lily couldn't recall the exact trigger of his fury. Perhaps she knocked over the last bit of whiskey, or maybe she had simply breathed too loud. All she remembered was the sharp sting on her cheek as his hand struck her face. "You think I need you around, do ya?" he spat, whiskey stench soaking his every word. "Your mother might have cared, but you ain't worth the trouble." Lily clutched her cheek. "I'm sorry. Please don't," he roared like a wounded beast. "Shut your mouth, girl." Her heart shriveled in her chest, but Lily's eyes blazed. "I'm not worthless," she whispered, tasting coppery blood at the corner of her lip. Seth grabbed a handful of Lily's brown hair, pulling her so hard she gasped. "We'll see how you get along without me." Her silent tears fell lost in the dust under her boots as he pushed her into their rickety wagon. He set the horses spurring into darkness, too, intoxicated to care where they were going. They rattled over gravel and hard-baked earth, their wagon creaking. Lily leaned against splintered boards, bracing herself from the violent jostle, while her father's curses spilled into the night. Fear pulsed inside her, a dread that tonight might be the final straw in her father's downward spiral. About an hour later, the wagon lurched to a stop for a moment. Lily heard nothing but the hot wind and the occasional cry of coyotes. Then came the shuffle of boots as her father forced her out. "Get out!" he growled, stumbling off the wagon. The reek of whiskey drifted, making Lily nauseous. She complied, stepping onto dusty ground. They stood amid rolling hills of tall grass that shimmered beneath the moonlight. No settlement, no roads, no neighbors. An abandoned place, by the old Cheyenne trails far from the outposts. Lily's blood ran cold. Seth's voice was a raspy slur. "Figure it's time you learned what it means to be on your own. I ain't feeding you no more." He shoved Lily and she sprawled onto her hands and knees. She bit back a cry of pain as she felt small rocks grind into her palms. "Pa, wait." But she got no mercy. His old boots slammed into her ribs, sending her toppling into the dirt again. She coughed, tears gathering, as her father spat on the ground, glaring at her like she was an unwanted stray. In the feeble moonlight, she watched him climb clumsily back onto the wagon seat. With a vicious yank of the reins, Seth turned the horses. Then, as if to punctuate the moment, he pulled out a revolver. The shot rang out high above Lily's head. The bullet whirred past her ear, but the threat was unmistakable. "Don't you follow me," he snarled. Then the wheels rattled, hooves thundered, and the wagon vanished into darkness. Lily was alone, left to die on a wilderness road. Her ribs ached, hair matted in sweat and dust. Panic twisted her gut. She had nothing. No food, no water, no direction. The biting night wind stung her throbbing cheek. She stood, teetering unsteadily, scanning the horizon. No flicker of campfires, no sign of another soul. Lily forced herself to walk. She clutched at her side, where her father had kicked her each step, a fresh jolt of agony. She didn't know where she was going. Survival was all that mattered. Even in the near darkness, she recognized the faint silhouette of ridges to the north. She walked until her legs threatened to collapse. Each breath was ragged, the taste of blood from her busted lip, metallic on her tongue. Finally, exhaustion overcame her, and Lily sank against a jutting rock. Sleep lured her into unconsciousness. Voices carried on the wind, soft, rhythmic chanting, like the gentle hum of a lullaby. Lily jolted awake to the first glimmer of dawn. A pain twisted through her bruised side. Her lips were parched, her throat raw. That's when she saw him. The figure stood about 20 paces away, a proud silhouette etched by the rising sun. He wore deerskin leggings and a fringed buckskin shirt intricately beaded in traditional Cheyenne designs. His dark hair, braided and wrapped in leather, fell over one shoulder. Across his face, faint patterns of paint told stories Lily didn't understand. Her breath caught in her chest. She had heard fearsome tales about hostile tribes from her father's cronies, but she also remembered her mother's gentler words about respecting the people of the plains, caught between fear and exhaustion. Lily simply stared. The man raised a hand, neither threatening nor timid. Slowly he approached. Lily shrank back, but her body was too broken to run. He knelt beside her, and she caught the earthy aroma of sage and leather. Lily's thirst consumed her. She trembled as she reached for the pouch. The water had a stale tang, but it was pure relief to her parched throat. She coughed slightly, then drank more. Finally, she pulled back to steady her breathing. Each gulp eased the delirium. "Thank you," she croaked. He nodded. "You're hurt," he observed in halting English, his tone calm. Her side throbbed where her father's boot had landed. She gave a small nod. "Just bruised, I think." A pause thickened between them, a delicate moment of trust. The Cheyenne warrior studied Lily's battered face. He pressed a hand over the bruises near her ribs, carefully checking for broken bones. Lily inhaled sharply, bracing herself, but his touch was surprisingly gentle. Satisfied she was not mortally injured, he stood walk. He asked, extending an arm. She tried. Her legs quivered, but she managed to stand with his help. "I can," she rasped. He motioned for her to follow him. She hesitated, glancing back at the emptiness behind her. The memory of her father's wagon and the gunshot lurched in her mind. Where else could she go? Where else did she have to be, summoning every grain of courage? Lily nodded, and together they began to walk. They travelled slowly through the rolling hills as the sun rose high. Lily lagged, her exhaustion apparent. The warrior occasionally offered her a shoulder to lean on. Though she tried to remain upright, she felt her face burning at the thought of appearing weak, but her new companion's stoic kindness eased her embarrassment. Around midday they reached a small encampment, hidden by a copse of cottonwoods. Lily's heart pounded again. What if these people were less welcoming? But the Cheyenne warrior held up a hand, as if to say, "Stay close, but be calm." The camp was modest. She counted 3 tipis, arranged near a shallow creek. A woman stooped by a fire pit, tending a pot. A child darted around with a playful shriek. Another man was carefully working on arrow shafts, sharpening them with a flint tool. They all paused when Lily's rescuer stepped into view with a bruised white girl at his side. He spoke to them in Cheyenne, his voice measured and explaining, though Lily caught no words. She felt eyes on her, some wide and curious, others cautious. The woman, ladling stew from the pot, gave a slight nod and beckoned Lily to come closer. Lily's stomach growled. Her savior motioned for her to sit on a worn buffalo hide. The woman offered Lily a clay bowl of stew. Lily stared at the lump's meat roots, perhaps some wild onions swimming in a thick broth. The smell was heavenly. She took a tentative spoonful, nearly melting with gratitude. As she ate, her rescuer knelt by her. "My name." "Tall Hawk," he said quietly in English, pointing to himself. She swallowed a mouthful of stew. "I'm Lily Mulgrave." A tear escaped her eye. She hadn't said her name aloud to another soul since her mother died, let alone in a safe place. She quickly brushed it away. Tall Hawk nodded solemnly. "You alone?" Lily lowered her gaze. "My father." She bit her trembling lip. "He left me. I have no one else." She almost expected to feel shame, but mostly she felt relief in naming the truth. Tall Hawk looked at Lily with a compassion she hadn't felt in years. His eyes seemed to say something beyond words. "You survived, and that matters. You rest," he finally said. She nodded, finishing the stew. The midday sun glared overhead, but it felt less harsh under the gentle watch of Tall Hawk's people. Lily laid down, exhaustion sweeping her into a heavy sleep. She dreamt of her mother's lullaby, mixing with the song the Cheyenne woman hummed while tending the stew. She saw swirling patterns of paint, like the ones on Tall Hawk's face. In that dreamscape, fear receded, and for the first time in ages, Lily felt safe. Over the next few days, Lily recovered among Tall Hawk's small band. The woman who fed her, named Little Bird, had kind eyes that reminded Lily of her own mother. Little Bird patiently showed Lily how to tend a burn on her arm from the scorching summer sun. Another Cheyenne. Mother Star Dance insisted Lily eat each meal with them so she'd regain her strength. Communication was a patchwork of English phrases, gestures, and kindly smiles. Lily discovered that the group was a small family, branching off from a larger Cheyenne camp nearby. They had parted ways briefly to trade goods at a remote outpost, then planned to rejoin their people near the Powder River. Tall Hawk continued to watch over Lily. He showed her how to gather medicinal herbs from the creek bed to help with her bruised side. She winced at first, but the herbal poultice soothed her bruises. During quiet moments, Lily wrestled with guilt for leaning on their generosity. The prejudiced words of frontier settlers echoed in her mind. stories about how the Cheyenne were thieves or savages. Yet everything she saw contradicted those hateful claims. Tall Hawk's group was gentle, nurturing, and honorable in ways her own father had never been. Sometimes she recounted fleeting memories of her mother's gentleness, especially when Little Bird pressed a damp cloth to Lily's forehead. She missed her mother fiercely. Sleep brought nightmares of her father's angry face and the echoing gunshot. But each morning she awoke to see Tall Hawk's calm expression and felt reassured. After Lily had healed enough to walk without agony, the family decided to make for their next destination. They would travel east of Fort Laramie, then north toward the Powder River. Rejoining the main Cheyenne band, Lily had little choice but to go with them. She had nowhere else to call home. She half hoped they might find some settlement where she could stay, maybe a kind rancher's family. But in her heart, she was terrified to be alone again. Tall Hawk told Lily they would pass near a trading post, run by a man named Amos Hartzell, known to trade fairly with the Cheyenne. Lily's ears perked at the mention of a trading post. Perhaps they sold goods in English. Maybe she could find clues about where to go next. She also feared her father might be lurking at the same outpost, but she pushed that thought away. They journeyed for days, crossing sage-strewn plains and winding along gentle slopes. Lily rode behind Tall Hawk on his sturdy horse, clinging to the warm buckskin of the saddle. She watched hawks circle overhead, listened to the hush of the wind in the grass. The wide horizon gave her a sense of liberty. She never had, even if an undercurrent of fear remained. Eventually, they came upon the trading post near a shallow bend in the river. It wasn't much, a weathered wooden building with a covered porch, a few hitching posts, and a large corral out back. A sign read, "Hartzell's Trading Post," in peeling paint. Tall Hawk dismounted, Lily sliding off carefully. She took in the sight of other travelers, a pair of bearded prospectors, bartering in hushed tones, a man in a dusty cavalry uniform, tying his horse to a post, and a woman cradling a baby while collecting supplies. All turned their heads to regard the Cheyenne visitors with curiosity and wariness. Lily stood out even more in her half-Cheyenne, half-frontier attire. She wore a worn calico skirt, but had draped a soft deer-hide shawl across her shoulders, courtesy of Little Bird. Inside the building smelled of tobacco leather and dry goods. Amos Hartzell was a bald, wiry man with sharp eyes. He greeted Tall Hawk with cautious respect, and they spoke in measured English about exchanging furs for flour, sugar, and coffee. Lily browsed the shelves, letting her fingers linger on items she once took for granted: canned peaches, cloth ribbons. She even saw children's shoes, but she wore soft moccasins now. Courtesy of Stardance, her heart skipped when she heard a voice, reminiscent of her father's. She froze, but it wasn't Seth. It was just a prospector, cursing at the cost of salt. Her chest loosened. Still she clung near Tall Hawk. A commotion outside drew attention, raised voices, some kind of argument. Lily and Tall Hawk stepped onto the porch, two men, one wearing a battered black hat, and the other with a dusty bandana around his neck, were in a heated dispute with a third man, younger, with a trembling voice. The men in black hats brandished rifles. "You said you'd pay us for them?" "Pelts!" The older man spat at the younger. "Now you're trying to skip out with no silver." The younger man shook his head, eyes wide. I told you, I'd pay once. We weighed the pelts proper. I can't pay if you pull that trigger first." An ominous hush fell. Lily felt dread coil in her stomach. She edged closer to Tall Hawk, who regarded the scene with calm caution. But before matters escalated further, Amos Hartzell walked out with a stern expression. "If you're fixin' to cause trouble, do it off my porch," he snapped, leveling a steady glare. "Otherwise lower them rifles." Both men glared, but eventually lowered their weapons. The younger man exhaled in shaky relief. Amos gestured at them to move their argument elsewhere. The tension eased, and Lily let go of the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. When calm resumed, Lily watched the battered black hat duo walk away with curses under their breath. These were the dangers on every frontier: conflicts, accusations, violence. She realized the Cheyenne family she was with navigated these hazards constantly, yet they carried themselves with dignity. Suddenly a voice behind Lily. "Aren't you Seth Mulgrave's girl?" Lily froze, turning to see a thick-set woman with a wide-brimmed bonnet. Her name was Harriet Best, if Lily recalled correctly, from a settlement near Deadwood. Harriet looked at Lily with shocked recognition. Lily's eyes widened. Yes, I am," she murmured. Harriet's gaze flickered to the Cheyenne group. "What in tarnation are you doing with them?" Her tone was not overtly hateful, but laced with typical frontier suspicion. Lily's face reddened. She felt protective of Tall Hawk and the others. "They saved me," Lily said simply. "My father." Her words stuck. The memory of Seth's cruelty clenched her throat. Harriet's expression softened a fraction. As if imagining the worst, Lily averted her gaze and said no more. Harriet shifted uncomfortably. "Well, if you see your pa, you best be careful. Heard folks say he's been gambling and drinking heavy, even got into trouble with a posse from Laramie. Best not cross paths with him again." The news twisted Lily's stomach. Harriet nodded at her awkwardly, then headed back inside the store. Lily turned to Tall Hawk, who had watched the exchange quietly. He gave a slight shrug, as if to say, "Are you all right?" She swallowed. "Yes. Just old memories." He nodded in understanding. They finished their trade. Lily found no reason to linger, so she followed Tall Hawk back to the horses. Before mounting, she took one last glance at the road leading to the horizon. The dust swirling beyond the trading post made her wonder if her father lurked out there like a spectre, or if Harriet's rumor was true that he'd gotten entangled with dangerous men. Lily only knew she wouldn't be safe until she was truly free of Seth Mulgrave. Their journey continued. Lily's gratitude for Tall Hawk's band deepened daily. They shared food and taught her tasks to pull her weight, gathering firewood, fetching water, and even learning to scrape hides to make leather. The Cheyenne language gradually seeped into Lily's mind, though she was far from fluent. She learned the words for sun horse friend and thank you. If someone teased her about a mispronunciation, it was always gentle, playful, never cruel. She discovered that Tall Hawk had lost his parents when he was younger, not to a father's violence, but to a skirmish with reckless soldiers who viewed any native presence as a threat. His mother died protecting him and his sister, and his father fell in the same conflict. Only Tall Hawk and his sister survived. Now, as a grown man, he had pledged to protect his people, to ensure fewer innocent lives were lost. Lily found her heart breaking at the parallels in their stories. Though their struggles were different, the pain of loss connected them. At dusk one evening, the band settled near a broad bend in the Powder River. Campfires flickered under a canopy of stars. Little Bird prepared a hearty stew of venison and roots. Star Dance and another woman, Elk Woman, sang a soft melodic chant that lulled the children to sleep. Lily sat by Tall Hawk, feeling the warmth of the fire on her face. "There is peace here," Lily whispered half to herself. She recalled the nights she had cowered in her father's wagon, where the hush of darkness only amplified her fear. Here the darkness was alive with lullabies and distant wolf howls. But it wasn't terrifying. It was connected, harmonious. Tall Hawk nodded. "We cherish these moments," he replied, poking a branch into the fire. Sparks danced into the night sky. "Outsiders see only battles. But we have family laughter stories." Lily leaned forward. "Tell me a story." She felt shy, but curiosity overcame her. She craved to hear his history. Tall Hawk smiled slightly. He pointed to the sky. "That star is Bear's Eye. Long ago our people told of a great bear who guarded the land. When night comes, he watches over the Cheyenne, guiding us to safe paths, mesmerized." Lily followed his gaze to the heavens. The star glimmered bright. She suddenly felt the presence of her mother again, the memory of her lullabies. Maybe that star was also guiding Lily, now leading her on a path she never expected. They reached the larger Cheyenne camp, a sprawling collection of teepees near a wide meadow at the cusp of summer's end. Smoke rose from scattered fires, and children darted about, chasing each other with sticks and laughter. Warriors huddled at the edges, working on bows or preparing to hunt. A strong sense of community pulsed through the air. Lily felt eyes on her as she entered the camp. Whispers drifted among the Cheyenne families. Some had never expected to see a white girl among them, yet no one approached her with hostility. If anything, curiosity reigned. A few children giggled, pointing at her braided hair, laced with a bead or two from Stardance's handiwork. The day Lily arrived, a gentle older man named Spotted Crane greeted Tall Hawk. They conversed quickly in Cheyenne, and Lily gleaned from his tone that something was brewing. She caught fragments like soldiers and rumors of conflict. Her heart quickened. She remembered Harriet's words about her father's trouble with a posse near Laramie. Could that posse have anything to do with the soldiers making trouble for the Cheyenne? Indeed, as the days passed, Lily learned from the scraps of conversation that tension was rising between the Cheyenne and the local cavalry. Several smaller ranchers had pressured the army to push native camps farther away, claiming they were a threat. Others believed the Cheyenne might be allied with bands that had attacked traveling settlers. The truth was murky, but Lily knew the end result. More conflict, more tragedy. Tall Hawk and Spotted Crane, along with other respected men of the band, talked of preparing to move the camp north before the cavalry arrived. Lily recognized the familiar fear in their eyes, the fear of being displaced once more. Part of her wanted to rage against the injustice. One afternoon, while she helped Stardance prepare dried buffalo meat, Lily overheard a group of warriors discussing some troublemaker who was traveling with a band of outlaws. They were rumored to be pillaging small farms in the region. Lily's hands froze in the midst of slicing meat. Outlaws, the name caught her breath. Seth Mulgrave, the warrior who uttered it, looked perplexed at the foreign-sounding name. Another guessed that Seth was merely a hired gun for these outlaws. Lily's stomach twisted. She forced herself to keep cutting the meat, though her heart thundered. Her father was still out there, tangled with criminals. She feared he might do something that would harm the Cheyenne. Her new family. Early one dawn, Tall Hawk and Lily ventured out to collect wild berries along a ridge overlooking a shallow creek. The sun cast a golden glow across the plains. They talked in hushed tones, Tall Hawk teaching Lily the Cheyenne words for different plants, Lily practicing timidly. Suddenly the distant sound of galloping hooves pricked their ears. They crouched low among the tall grass, scanning the horizon. A group of riders approached from the south, maybe 5 or 6 men. As they drew closer, Lily's stomach sank. She recognized the slump-shouldered silhouette of the lead rider, Seth Mulgrave. She could hardly breathe. Tall Hawk placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. Lily's mind spun with memories of the beating of being left to die. She felt the urge to flee, but a fiercer instinct took hold. She would not let him threaten her new family. The men reined in their horses at the creek, dismounting to refill canteens and water their horses. One of them, bearded with a menacing face, grunted, "We'll move on that ranch at dusk, then circle around to flush out them." Cheyenne, Lily's heart hammered. These men were planning violence against innocent settlers, and Cheyenne alike. Seth paced near the water, a whiskey flask in hand. His eyes burned with the same malevolence Lily remembered. Ain't no difference. Cheyenne ranchers, cavalry. They all got something we can take, and if they get in our way, we'll kill 'em. He spat viciously. A chill shivered through Lily. She wanted to believe a father's love might remain somewhere in Seth, but his words snuffed out any last ember of hope. Tall Hawk motioned for Lily to stay quiet. They inched away, hidden by the tall grass. Once they reached a safe distance, they crept down the ridge. Lily's heart pounded so loudly, she feared the outlaws might hear. When they were far enough, they ran back to camp. Lily's breaths were ragged, her legs trembling. She explained in rushed, panicked words to Spotted Crane and the other warriors what she had overheard, that these outlaws planned to attack a ranch and possibly target the Cheyenne. The men exchanged resolute looks. They had to warn the nearest ranchers or the cavalry of the incoming attack, even though the cavalry was not always friendly to the Cheyenne. Lives were at stake. A small group including Tall Hawk. Spotted Crane and 2 other warriors decided to ride to a nearby cavalry patrol station. To relay the warning, Lily insisted on going with them. "I can speak better English," she explained. "They may not trust you, but if I speak, they'll listen." Tall Hawk frowned. He feared for her safety. Her father's gang was out there, and cavalry soldiers might not welcome a Cheyenne war party, but Lily's determination was unyielding. She refused to let the outlaws murder innocents. With reluctant acceptance, Tall Hawk let her join the warning party. They rode hard through the scorching sun, crossing wide stretches of open land. Lily's heart hammered every time a cloud of dust rose in the distance, fearing it might be Seth and his gang, but they pressed on. By late afternoon, they spotted the cavalry station, a rough palisade fence around a small cluster of buildings near a dried-out riverbed. The stars and stripes snapped on a tall pole out front. Approaching the gate, they were greeted by tense soldiers, rifles at the ready. "Halt, state, your business," barked a corporal with a bristling mustache. He eyed the Cheyenne warriors with clear suspicion. Lily rode ahead, hands raised. "Please, we come in peace," she shouted. "We have a warning for your commander." The corporal squinted. "Who are you?" "My name is Lily Mulgrave. I was raised on the frontier," she said carefully. "We have information about a gang of outlaws planning attacks on local ranches and possibly on Cheyenne camps." Her voice trembled, but she remained firm. The corporal sized her up, noticing her ragged calico dress, the buckskin shawl, and the Cheyenne at her side. Finally, he relented. "Wait here." They waited in tense silence. Tall Hawk and the others stayed alert, scanning for any sign of betrayal. At length, the corporal returned with a stern-looking lieutenant. "All right, speak quickly," the lieutenant ordered. Lily took a shaky breath. "There are men, my father among them, who are planning to raid a ranch at dusk near the Powder River. They also want to ambush any Cheyenne they find. They mean to kill or steal from anyone in their path." The lieutenant's gaze flicked to the Cheyenne warriors. "And why should we believe you? This could be a ploy." Tall Hawk met the lieutenant's eyes. "We want no bloodshed," he said in halting English. "They are dangerous men. They kill Cheyenne. They kill settlers. You must stop them." The lieutenant considered, rubbing his jaw. He seemed unconvinced. Lily realized a direct approach might not be enough. She recalled hearing Harriet Best mention her father's trouble with the law. Maybe that could help. My father, Seth Mulgrave, is wanted by a posse from Fort Laramie. Lily, said voice firmer, he's with these outlaws. You can confirm it with your command at Fort Laramie. They're likely gathering intelligence already. Her heart pounded. She had never turned her father in before. But now it felt necessary for everyone's safety. The lieutenant frowned. Seth Mulgrave. I've heard that name. The commander at Fort Laramie did send word about a drunken wastrel with a record of violence. All right, he exchanged a glance with the corporal. If you speak true, we can't ignore it. Relief washed over Lily. What will you do? She asked. The lieutenant nodded curtly. Gather the men. We'll ride out immediately. We can't let these outlaws run free. Where is the ranch they plan to raid? Lily pointed on a rough map the corporal handed over, indicating the approximate location along the Powder River. The lieutenant grunted. Thank you. Now get out of here before nightfall. We can't guarantee your safety if we meet again in the dark. They turned their horses and galloped away, hearts still pounding. Lily silently prayed the cavalry would stop Seth's gang before they hurt anyone, but part of her dreaded the confrontation. She wasn't sure she could bear to see her father again. That evening, a deep purple hue painted the sky. Lily and the Cheyenne warning party lingered near a rocky bluff overlooking the valley, waiting to see or hear the cavalry's approach. They hoped to witness the outlaws' defeat from a distance without getting entangled in the fight. None of them sought bloodshed, but they wouldn't stand idle if innocents were threatened. In the twilight, they spotted flickers of movement by the ranch, below a humble homestead with a small barn, a chicken coop and a single lamp glowing in the window. The silhouette of 4 or 5 riders emerged from the shadows, creeping closer. Lily's stomach twisted. That had to be Seth's gang. Suddenly the thunder of hooves. The cavalry arrived from the east, shining lantern light upon the outlaws. Halt in the name of the United States Army, bellowed a commanding voice, rifles cocked. The outlaws whipped their horses around, cursing, but they were surrounded on 3 sides. A gunshot cracked the stillness. It seemed to come from the outlaws' side. The cavalry returned fire. The ranch lamp flickered wildly, and the ranch family likely huddled inside, terrified. Within moments, chaos reigned. Muzzles flashed in the dark. Men shouted and cursed. Lily's heart pounded, tears burning her eyes. Even at a distance, the violence was stark. She spotted Seth's silhouette on a rearing horse. He fired wildly, whiskey brave and desperate. The cavalry pinned the outlaws. One by one, she saw men fall from saddles. The final standoff ended with a sharp cry, then eerie silence. She forced herself to watch as soldiers disarmed the wounded outlaws. 2 cavalrymen pinned Seth Mulgrave to the ground. He spat curses, but his voice was weaker than Lily remembered. She saw the battered figure of her father in the soldier's torchlight face, twisted in rage and fear. A bullet had grazed his shoulder, oozing blood. Other outlaws lay motionless, either dead or moaning in pain. The frightened rancher emerged with a rifle of his own face. Pale Lily's limbs felt leaden. Her father had reaped the dark harvest he sowed, yet she felt no triumph, only a heavy sadness. This was the man who once long ago carried her on his shoulders and made her laugh as a small child. That man was gone. What remained was a drunk, cruel husk, consumed by greed and hate. Tall Hawk placed a hand on her arm. "We should go," he said gently, sensing the turmoil in her heart. She swallowed hard, nodding with Spotted Crane, and the others they retreated from the bluff. As they rode into the night, Lily stared at the fading torchlights below. She wondered what would become of Seth now. He was in the army's custody. Perhaps he'd face a trial imprisonment, or even a hanging if convicted of murder. A pang of pity flickered for the father she once loved, but the pity was overshadowed by relief that his menace was contained. He would not harm her or her new family again. Morning arrived with a golden sun that felt both comforting and sorrowful. Lily sat by the riverside, gazing at her reflection in the slow-moving water. She remembered a time she was 7, playing with her father along a creek in a happier place. He had been sober that day, picking wildflowers for her mother. Where did it all go wrong? Tall Hawk approached quietly, carrying a small bundle of herbs and roots. He knelt beside her. "For the bruises," he said, handing her the bundle. She still had faint aches from weeks ago, though they were mostly healed. She accepted them, cradling them as she blinked away tears. "You're kind," she said. He considered her carefully. "Your heart is heavy. I see it in your eyes." She let out a trembling breath. "I was just remembering that he wasn't always like this. My father used to be good." She stared at the reflection of her tear-streaked face. But he changed. The whiskey, the anger, I don't know. Tall Hawk listened with empathy. "We all change with pain," he said quietly. "Some hearts grow bitter. Others become strong and gentle." He paused, then added, "You did not become like him. You have a good heart." That observation unlocked something in Lily. She realized she had been gripping an invisible chain of guilt, wondering if she was somehow doomed to the same path. But Tall Hawk's words released her from that fear. She wasn't destined to be cruel. The Cheyenne band was preparing to move again, seeking new hunting grounds before winter set in. Lily faced a decision: remain with them, or attempt to find a homestead or settlement to live among her own people. The cavalry's presence meant more patrols, more tension. Even if the outlaws were gone, the distrust and threat of forced relocation loomed for the Cheyenne Star dance. Took Lily aside one day and gave her a small doeskin pouch embroidered with a flowering design. Inside were a few dried herbs and a beaded bracelet for you. Star Dance said in Cheyenne, smiling warmly. Lily accepted it with tears in her eyes. The kindness of these people had given her the shelter her father never did. She wasn't sure how to repay them. One day, Tall Hawk spoke to Lily about the future. "Our people move north. You can come with us, or you may try a town. We will not force you." Lily swallowed, feeling the pang of uncertainty. If I go with you, will your people accept me?" He paused, considering. Some might question. "But many see you as part of our family. You helped warn us. You helped warn the settlers. You brought peace, if only for a time." He offered a hopeful half-smile. "You are not alone." Her heart soared. She remembered her mother's lullabies, the sweet voice that comforted her. She felt that same comfort, now among the Cheyenne. A new life, a new family. It seemed more real than any false promise of frontier settlements. She had found acceptance here, something she had never felt among her own people aside from her mother. A day later, Spotted Crane and some elders held a small ceremony near the flickering campfire. Lily was uncertain at first, but Tall Hawk assured her it was a blessing. They offered prayers to the Great Spirit, asking for guidance and protection for Lily. Then they honored her with a Cheyenne name. Moonflower, symbolizing the delicate yet resilient blossom that opens at night. Lily felt tears streaming down her face as they placed a symbolic beaded necklace around her neck. The acceptance overwhelmed her. Time passed Lily now. Moonflower to many traveled with Tall Hawk and the band northward, each day learning more about Cheyenne traditions. She learned to ride bareback with confidence, to set up tipis to gather wild herbs and edible roots. She was not a mere guest. She was part of the community. Rumors arrived now and then of the cavalry's campaigns, of treaties ignored, and of more conflict. Tensions simmered between the U.S. government and various tribes, leading to heartbreak after heartbreak. Lily's new family tried to steer clear of direct confrontation, but they were well aware that war brewed on the horizon. Despite her anxieties, Lily cherished each peaceful day. One late autumn evening, a rider approached the Cheyenne camp. He was a scout from Fort Laramie, carrying messages. The band greeted him with caution. The scout asked for Lily by name. News of a white girl among the Cheyenne had spread. Heart-hammering, Lily stepped forward. He handed her a piece of official parchment. Seth Mulgrave was tried and found guilty for robbery, assault, and murder. The scout said, "He's been sentenced to hang in 2 weeks at Fort Laramie." The court asked if you wished to see him. Lily's eyes blurred with tears. She hadn't anticipated the finality of it all. So the father who abandoned her was now set to die. She gazed at the scout's serious face. "Why do they want me to see him?" she whispered. "Apparently he requested it," the scout said, shrugging. "Said he wanted to talk to you. We were asked to pass the message along." With that, he left, spurring his horse into the night. Lily stood there, the parchment trembling in her hand. The Cheyenne around her waited respectfully, seeing the turmoil in her eyes. Tall Hawk came to her side. "You do not have to go," he said softly. "It is your choice." She nodded, swallowing the knot in her throat. She hated Seth for his brutality, for his betrayal, but part of her wondered if she needed closure. Did she owe him a final conversation, or would facing him again only renew her nightmares? After a sleepless night, Lily made her choice. She would go. She couldn't carry the weight of unresolved anger any longer. Perhaps she needed to look him in the eye and say what she needed to say for her own peace. Tall Hawk offered to accompany her, and she was grateful. Traveling alone was too dangerous, emotionally and physically. They rode back toward Fort Laramie, a tense 3-day journey. As they neared the fort, Lily's stomach churned. She recalled watching it from afar years ago, longing for the safety behind its walls. Now it loomed a symbol of her father's final fate. At the gates, they were met by suspicious guards. But once Lily explained, the officer in charge recognized her name from the court's notice. With reluctance, they allowed her entry. Tall Hawk was told to wait outside, as the fort was not open to armed warriors. Lily felt a pang of fear at entering alone, but a wave of warmth filled her chest when Tall Hawk placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I will be here," he promised. She nodded, breathing in his calmness before stepping through the heavy wooden gates. A nervous corporal guided Lily through the fort's dusty courtyard, past rows of barracks, to a small stone building that served as a makeshift jail. The thick door groaned open, revealing a corridor of cells. The corporal motioned to one at the far end. Lily's pulse hammered. She stepped closer, seeing a figure slumped against the bars in the dim light. Seth Mulgrave, his ragged hair hung in greasy clumps, his face drawn and hollow. The father who once seemed larger than life now looked frail, broken. When he heard footsteps, Seth looked up. The flicker of a lantern revealed his swollen eyes, like he had been crying or fighting. A moment of silence passed between them, thick with memories. "You came," he rasped, voice carrying a note of surprise. Lily fought the urge to recoil from the bars. She stood tall, heart pounding. "Yes," she managed. "I'm here." He let out a shuddering breath. "I am guessing you heard what's happening. They're fixin' to hang me." His voice shook bitterness laced with fear. They said I had the right to see kin before the end. Lily swallowed, feeling her throat tighten. She recalled being that small child who once called him Pa. Now she saw only the shell of a man who'd lost himself. "Why did you want me here?" she asked, her tone subdued but firm. Seth coughed, then spoke in a ragged whisper. "Why, I ain't got no one else." He stared at her with desperate eyes. "Listen, Lily, I know I done you wrong, left you to die. I know it. But times were hard. I was out of my head, with whiskey, with grief over your ma." His voice cracked. "Not that it's an excuse. I just wanted you to know I didn't start out this way." Tears pricked Lily's eyes. She remembered fleeting good memories, but they were drowned by the cruelty of later years, culminating in that horrific night. "You almost killed me," she said, voice trembling. "You left me alone in the dark." He nodded, tears slipping down his grimy cheeks. I know I can't ask for forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you." He paused, voice shaking, with a mixture of shame and sorrow. "I'm sorry." Those words hung in the stagnant air. For a moment, Lily closed her eyes. She felt the old wounds, the betrayal, the fear. Then she recalled Tall Hawk, Little Bird, Star Dance, how they welcomed her when her own father had not. She remembered the circle of Cheyenne around the fire, naming her Moonflower. She was no longer that abandoned child. She had found a real family. She opened her eyes, meeting Seth's gaze with unexpected calm. "I can't forget what you did," she said softly, "or how you hurt me. But I can let go of the hate I've found, people who showed me kindness when you wouldn't." She took a trembling breath. "I won't carry your sins as my burden anymore." Seth wept openly, shoulders shaking. Lily felt a pang of pity, but no desire to rush to his side. She simply stood there, letting him bear the weight of his actions. After a tense silence, Seth mustered a final whisper. I hope you find a good life, Lily." She said nothing in reply. Finally, she turned away. The guard locked the cell door behind her. She walked down the corridor, her footsteps echoing. Each step felt lighter, as though she was discarding the chains of her father's cruelty. Stepping back into the sunlight of the fort's courtyard, she spotted Tall Hawk waiting at the gate. The relief in her chest was immense. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face, and he caught her in a comforting embrace. His presence was solid, unwavering. "What happened?" he asked gently. She wiped her tears. "He apologized, and he's going to hang." She paused, voice trembling. I forgave him in my heart. But I can't. I don't want to see him die." Tall Hawk nodded solemnly. "Then let us leave this place." Lily agreed. Without looking back, they mounted their horses. She heard the fort gates groan shut behind them. Her father's final chapter would be played out without her presence. She had her own life to live. The days that followed held a quiet sense of release for Lily. She traveled with Tall Hawk, meeting back up with the Cheyenne band. Word arrived that Seth Mulgrave was executed at dawn on the appointed day. Lily absorbed the news with a mixture of sadness and acceptance. Sometimes, the only resolution for an evil path is a hard end. Life pressed on. The changing seasons brought cooler winds. The band migrated, according to tradition, seeking fresh hunting grounds. Lily embraced her role in the community, mending clothing, helping gather berries, joining hunts with Tall Hawk when she could keep up. She formed friendships with the young women, laughing around the fire, braiding each other's hair. And yet, beyond the circle of firelight, Lily remained aware of the encroaching threat, the cavalry, the settlers, the broken treaties. but fear no longer ruled her heart. She had found a place in the world, however precarious. A sense of purpose and belonging anchored her times. She caught tall Hawk's gaze, lingering on her across the camp, a shy warmth in his eyes that made her blush. Over time, that fondness blossomed into a deeper bond. They laughed together, shared dreams of building a life that honored both their legacies. He never tried to replace the father she lost, but he supported Lily's desire to learn her mother's traditions, as well as the Cheyenne ways. It was a union of cultures, an unspoken promise of hope. Years later, Lily Moonflower would recall how near she came to dying alone, abandoned by Seth, and she would remember the Cheyenne warrior who rode out of the shadows to save her through storms of violence and heartbreak. She had grown into a resilient young woman who stood on equal footing with her adoptive people, forging her destiny with strength and compassion. Her father received his hard karma, but Lily didn't remain trapped by that cruelty. Instead, she blossomed in the desert of adversity, carrying forward the best of both worlds. Even as harsh winds blew and conflict raged on the frontier, Lily's spirit soared free, shining like a moonlit bloom, a testament to the power of forgiveness, courage, and a new beginning. Thank you for listening to the story of Frontier Girl, left to die by her drunken father. Cheyenne warrior saves her life. Lily Mulgrave's journey reminds us that even in the harshest, most lawless lands, kindness and resilience can defy cruelty. She carried both the scars of her past and the hopes of her new family, finding the courage to forgive while embracing her own strength. If this tale touched your heart, please do 3 simple things to keep our stories alive. Like this video to show your support. Share it with your friends who love frontier adventures, and subscribe to our channel, so you never miss another story of survival, redemption, and the indomitable human spirit. By doing so, you ensure that brave voices like Lily's continue to echo through time. Join us on our next adventure under the wide, wondrous sky. Thank you.